Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 258, Lysis Conclusions. Last time I was rudely interrupted by the end of the podcast. I was in the middle of saying that Socrates does something peculiar at the end of the dialogue. He's already made Lysis uncomfortable by suggesting that he should be a friend to his Erastes, Hypothales, if Lysis actually knows that Hypothales is his Erastes. Lysis might be aware that he has several Erastai. The conclusion does seem to have affected him because he goes silent, although really he's been silent for a lot of the conversation. But Socrates wants at least his unknown audience to think that Lysis has been affected, and we may imagine that Socrates has done this because he hasn't managed to make Lysis think critically in any other way. Just asking him questions and getting him confused hasn't worked because Lysis hasn't been thinking through all of the inconsistencies in the argument which would lead him to be confused. He's just been sitting there listening to Socrates going on and possibly enjoying listening to Menexenus being defeated in some way by Socrates, although Socrates hasn't really been trying to defeat Menexenus in an eristic debate, although this is what Lysis had asked Socrates to do. If being puzzled is to be like someone drunk, then Lysis is perfectly sober. Socrates may have hoped that concluding that Lysis should be a friend of the person who is lusting after him would shake him up a bit, and he might therefore begin to question the argument which led to this unsettling conclusion. Menexenus didn't go quiet when Lysis did, so he's clearly unaffected by this conclusion. And after the conversation has broken up, we find Socrates trying the same exercise again. He unsettles them not through argument, but through something which will affect them emotionally. He says, very intimately when no one can hear them, that they are a laughing stock to all the others who are listening to the conversation. Why are they a laughing stock? Because they appear not to know what friendship is, which is ridiculous if they claim that they are friends. The unsettling part of this observation is not the conclusion that they don't know what a friend is. It hasn't affected the boys throughout the conversation, apart from that one time when Lysis had his embarrassing outburst. But since then, they seem not to have been concerned that the arguments always lead to an aporia about some aspect of friendship. But what would unsettle them is that they might be a laughing stock. When we were talking about Menexenus and eristics, I pointed out that the way to win in a debate is to have the audience laugh at one's opponent. That is the indication that they think the opponent is an idiot and that he has lost the debate. Being a laughingstock is particularly unsettling for someone who cares about reputation, someone who wants to appear to be good, who wants to appear to be clever. And here is Socrates suggesting that everyone who is listening to them will think that they are complete idiots. I would suggest that Socrates is hoping that this might motivate them to begin to think seriously about what friendship is, so that the next time they won't appear to be ridiculous. This very same episode should also have an effect on the unknown audience. Not because the boys appear ridiculous, not because they don't know what friendship is, but because the unknown audience would surely have been identifying with Hippothales, and he would be regarding Socrates as someone who is supposed to be helping Hippothales, and here he is, Socrates, betraying Hippothales. He is now talking intimately with Lysis and Menexenus, and Hippothales has dropped completely out of the narrative. Socrates has a way of disappointing people at the end of a dialogue. We don't get their reaction, but we may imagine that they are not all that happy. It would seem that Socrates doesn't mind being considered by the people he talks to as a problem. He is annoying, he gets them irritated at the very least, but he is hoping that this will cause them to begin to think more seriously about what has happened. Certainly, the whole description of what happened after the conversation ended, the actual breaking up of the conversation, the paidagogoi being a bit tipsy, breaking up the conversation, telling everyone to go home, is all redundant philosophically, we might imagine, but it allows Socrates to show that he has annoyed Lysis and Menexenus and the unknown audience. After all, this is what friends are for. Speaking of which, we should talk about the first movement. We didn't talk about it last time. This is the conversation Socrates had with Lysis on his own. This is supposed to be about philia, but in fact, it begins with Socrates asking whether the parents of Lysis love him, and Lysis says, of course they do, but then gradually Socrates brings out the idea that someone who loves someone else should be concerned with their eudaimonia, their happiness. I should make it clear that eudaimonia doesn't mean just an emotional state. It is that life is going well, and the indication that life is going well is that one's personal daimon is good, and that is where the person is in the state of eudaimonia. He has a eudaimon, a good demon. We might be able to see that the parents do want their son to have a good life. They are training him in various technai, various skills or arts, and in any skill or art where he is still incompetent, he's not allowed to do what he wants, but has to obey the orders of a professional, an expert in that techne. It so happens that a lot of the experts are slaves. So the parents tell the slaves what to do, how to look after the child, and the effect is, at least as Socrates interprets it, that a child who should be happy is actually restrained not only by his parents, but even by slaves. They have more power than he has. Socrates then draws out the implications, and he gets Lysis to realize, or at least answer a question where he didn't have much choice, that his parents will actually like him when he is competent at a techne. This is concluded from the fact that the parents do allow Lysis to perform a few techne the way he wants to do them. These include reading and playing the lyre. Socrates gives him an opportunity to reassess what they've been saying by asking whether in these techne he can do as he pleases. He can read letters as he wishes in whatever order. He can string the lyre in any way he wishes. Lysis should have said that the techne itself limits him. You can't do anything you want in the techne. The only people who can do whatever they want in a techne are precisely the people who don't know how the techne works. Anyway, instead of concluding that the parents will love him at last when he has competence in the various techne, they conclude that Lysis will acquire complete control of any techne in which he becomes competent, and his father will turn over the house and everything to his son the moment he thinks that his son is better than he is at the techne of running a house. And then the neighbor would also do the same thing, and then the Athenians would hand over the running of the polis the moment they think that Lysis is more competent than they are. And the great king, the king of Persia, will allow, and here Socrates interestingly includes himself, he will allow us to do the cooking for him. We will become his chefs if we are competent in cooking. And first of all, that means that the desire of Lysis to control and to be better than other people would make him the slave to everyone. He would have to do everything for everybody else. Secondly, he still doesn't understand that as a cook you do not throw as much salt as you want into soup. You have to follow the rules of the techne. And you may have noticed this has very little to do with philia.